Why Do You Podcast? Een podcastreeks waarin podcasters vertellen over waarom ze podcasten. Ik ben Annelies, ik ben podcastmanager en coach en ik ga in gesprek met podcastmakers uit België, Nederland en ver daarbuiten om hen te vragen naar hun why als het over podcasten gaat. Je ontdekt in deze reeks dat iedereen een eigen reden heeft om te podcasten en along the way krijg je ook heel veel tips en inspiratie om met je eigen podcast aan de slag te gaan. Luister je mee? Hello, Reginald. Welcome in my podcast. Why Do You Podcast?
Well, thank you, Anna. It's really a pleasure. I'm really flattered to be invited.
Yeah, I'm happy you could be here. Well, it's not that hard. We're recording this online, so because you are far away from us here in Belgium.
I am, and I've never been. So now I know someone in Belgium. So maybe
yes.
one day I'll mark it on my list.
Let me know. Let me know when you're in the area. I would love to meet you in real life. Yeah, but
Thank
for now, Riverside we'll have to do because you're in New York. Yeah. And tell me, what is the title of your podcast and what is it about?
Yes, my podcast is entitled the Fashion Geek Podcast. It ties directly in my business, which is New York Fashion Geek. And the Fashion Geek Podcast and essentially is an interview style pod in which I'm talking with other founders, people who have their own brands, and we're talking about their origin stories. And then at the very end, we give some helpful tips for the everyday man to look his best.
Okay, so it's all people in the fashion industry.
Yes, either owners, founders, or people who I entitle fashion adjacent.
Okay. And what do you entitle? Who do you entitle fashion adjacent?
Sure. For example, if you're a blogger in the space,
Okay, yeah,
I think that's a very accurate definition.
yeah, okay, yeah. So everyone basically relation to fashion.
To men's fashion
Men's
specifically.
fashion. Yeah, okay, yeah, cool.
Thank you.
And what are then you give fashion tips, but what other topics do you discuss on the podcast?
Well, really, to me, and when I bring on a guest, I'm attracted to the potential of their story. Podcasts could be many things, but I view the storytelling aspect, so to speak, as my highlight, as my draw. So the majority of the individuals who I bring on the podcast, I've met them through Instagram. So one could argue through their posts, through their videos, they're telling a story, so to speak, and it will intrigue me. It will draw me in. And then generally these people I've already followed on the platform, and then I'll DM them. And I've been really lucky and blessed that they'll respond and it's favorable. So here's a spoiler. I recently did a interview, was it a week, 2 weeks ago, with the brand ambassador for Beam Suntory in their whiskey division. I met him at an event a few months ago, which was hosted by one of his counterparts in the Japanese whiskey area. Big shout out to Yuka Saijo. And I met this individual, Simon Brooking, and my last name is Ferguson, and that's Scotch.
Yeah, it is.
And I'm well aware of that. So when I got to meet this guy, I said to him, I know my tartan. And I don't think he really was expecting that, particularly from an African American.
Yeah.
A New Yorker, okay.
Yeah.
But an African American New Yorker, I'd like to think that was pretty unique.
Yeah, I think so, yeah.
So fast forward a week or 2 weeks ago, I asked him, I said, I would really be interested in interviewing you. And then he actually took it to a much higher level because not only did we have a conversation about Scotch whiskey, which again, right now one could argue was have to do with your podcast. Well, you could argue successfully that it doesn't, but I am of the mind that if you're into men's fashion, you probably to some level are interested in spirits. So that was the initial conversation. But the ending conversation was about fashion, and it was about specifically my tartan, the Ferguson tartan, in which there are 6 versions of our tartan.
Yeah.
And, I'll leave it at that.
Yeah,
Everyone
but
else is gonna have to check it out.
that is fashion indeed, yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely it is.
Yeah.
It absolutely is.
Yeah.
So,
All right. Yeah, cool story.
thank you.
So you always have guests,
Well, now,
or
let me take a step
solo episodes?
I'll take a step back. When the pod initially launched, was that 4 or 5 years ago, it was co-hosted with segments. So a good friend of mine, big shout out to Tiffany, she she ironically, she was the person who made me launch a podcast. I had no interest in launching a podcast back then. I had guested on a friend's, big shout out to my boy Blaze. He had a podcast at that time, and I liked being a guest. And I remember saying to myself, "Oh man, I'd love to be a guest on podcasts. Like,
Yeah.
is there a circuit for that? Like, I could do that." But I never in a million years thought I would have my own pod. But she really felt that there was a direct connection to having a podcast alongside a business. So that's how it started. Co-hosted with she and I with segments. We'd have the occasional interview. But then COVID happened here. And if you recall, there was a quick expanse of time in which we became the number one for cases. We were
Yeah.
quarantining in place. And, you know, she made the decision that she didn't want to do it anymore, which initially was very heartbreaking, particularly because this is the person who dragged me into this game.
Yeah.
What the heck, Tiff? It too, Tiff. So I really wanted to handle it delicately, particularly being a man and having a co-host as a woman. I'm very sensitive about that. I have 3 older sisters. The majority of the women in my family are women, and I just didn't want her to ever feel, though she initiated
Mhm.
the severance, that I was gonna treat her poorly during the transition. And really, technically, the door is always open. I mean, I don't think she's ever gonna cross the threshold, and we're still friends, but that's when I had to make a decision. The first decision was, how do I continue my podcast? Because we were doing it at a studio, at my friend's studio. Big shout out to Search. COVID happens. We can't go to people's homes. I didn't know what to do. So my same friend Blaze, he recommended Zencaster
Okay, yeah.
and the whole aspect of remote recording,
Mhm.
which I knew nothing about really. So that's what saved my podcast. And then I decided that it would be solo hosted. It would be interviews. And to your point, occasionally I have done solo episodes. I always feel weird about those, but people seem to like them. I haven't done one in a while. I have one in my mind to do now. I just don't have the time. I'm a solopreneur. I'm the
Yeah,
chief bottle washer for my business. So,
I get that.
and I'm
Yeah.
not the best with time every day. So I get things done, but I don't get everything done.
Yeah.
So,
Also, I get that. Yeah. Yeah. Also solopreneur here. So yeah, same problem. And for me, I also do solo episodes on my other podcast, which is about podcast strategy and podcast marketing, because
mm,
I'm a podcast manager. So all about podcasting for me. But
yeah,
yeah,
360.
I do solo episodes on the other podcast, but on the other show. But Yeah, interviews are so much more fun.
I like interviews, but you're a podcast manager, so I don't have to tell you when we talk about trends, people are always naysaying the interview format and going, that's not the most popular, not to do that. But I happen to like it.
I like it too, but I do agree to some extent because we've met in the podcast marketing academy of Jeremy. Yeah, Jeremy has also been a guest here, um, and I think
Oh,
he would
okay.
agree. If you have you're a business owner, you use your show as a form of marketing, and
Sure.
you want to position yourself as the expert, and so you don't want to give your stage to a guest all the time. Yeah, you should take the stage for yourself at least once in a while. Uh,
I love interviewing
yeah,
individuals in my space. So is it sharing? I mean, I guess it is,
yeah,
but
it is. Yeah,
but I don't care.
yeah,
I certainly have strong opinions, and like I said, I have a solo episode in my head right now. But as we speak, particularly because I lost my intern who specifically was doing podcast post-production, for the past few days, I've been doing the post-production.
yeah. Okay, okay.
And, as you already know, that takes a lot of
It,
freaking time.
it's a lot of work. Yeah, it is. Yeah. So, how many do you have a set frequency? Do you put out new episodes every week or?
That has also evolved, and
Yeah.
so when it was co-hosted, we were doing weekly. Then we went from weekly to like every other week. And then when I took it over, I was trying to do weekly, but you mentioned someone who we have in common, Jeremy Enns. Big shout out to Jeremy. We're in the same marketing cohort with him,
Yeah.
led by him. I made a choice. Matter of fact, I was a hot seat interview less than a year ago because I really had a burning question. I knew to give myself the proper space and grace that if I attempted to do anything more than monthly, I didn't think I'd have the bandwidth,
Yeah.
particularly because within just the past few months, I went from audio only to video as well, aka a YouTube channel. So having those two things side by side, so to speak, I said to myself, and I know the post production of video. Not that I'm an expert, but I've done it, and it takes a lot of freaking time.
Yeah.
And he literally gave me his blessing to just do an episode a month,
Yeah.
and that's been super. And that's where I'm at, and I don't think that's gonna change anytime soon. The only way that could change is literally if I had a cadre of individuals focused strictly on podcasting,
Yeah.
and I have other aspects of my business.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I don't. Not yet.
Yeah. No,
One
not yet.
day.
Yeah, right. That's the spirit. Yeah.
One day.
Yeah.
One day, but not right now. So once a month, like, for example, I literally today finished the post-production video-wise of the episode that I was talking about.
Yeah.
Now, in my head already as we speak, maybe today, I have to create a thumbnail for it. I do have a former intern, a big shout out to Zaria Johnson, who's now my freelancer. She does keyword research better than I. I trained her, and she does it better, and she knows what she's doing, and she has her own format. And I don't like to reinvent the wheel, and so I'm gonna send her an email today and go, "Hey," and I had already given her the heads up. I'm like, "Hey, every episode moving forward, I will pay you, and you do it." So yeah, so that's where I'm at with a monthly, and I feel really comfortable with it. And listen, I don't have to tell you as a manager, the marketing. I am admittedly the black sheep of the podcast marketing academy. about what not to do. Uh, I'm popular, but I'm probably the worst student. So,
Oh, yeah, I think I thought that was me, but yeah.
well, here in the States, I'm the number one in the States. You're the number one in Europe.
Okay.
So,
Yeah.
so,
Yeah.
but yeah, but to have that understanding, and also what I'm not an expert at yet, but I think I'm getting better slowly, but surely, is having a month to attempt to figure out the plan for marketing on all platforms. So, social media, email. The one thing that I'm really proud of, I'd like to share, is once I decided to launch a YouTube channel, which to reiterate is just a few months in the making. And again, it's a monthly distribution, right? Whether it's video or audio. I'm of the mind that you never walk alone. And last summer, I was with a gentleman who's big in the media and the magazine business. And we were at a listening party for a new artist. It was the day before Afropunk, which is a big event here in the city. And we were literally on a rooftop, and he said, "Man, you need to have a listening party for your podcast." I went, "What?" And that blew my mind. And I remember just clamoring, going, "Well, what should I do? How do I do it?" So that's what I've been doing ever since I launched the YouTube channel.
Okay, cool. Yeah, that's a great idea. Yeah.
Yeah, trying to build community.
Yeah.
And I'll be really honest with you, Anne. There's a handful of men's fashion podcasts, and I'm gonna list them right now. Blammo, Throwing Fits. I think the other one is People of Interest. And I want to be up there in the conversation. I think my pod is just as good. I actually have a mentor outside of Jeremy. Big shout out to Pedro Mendez from Pacific Content. And he is always critical about my pod, yet positively critical. And I want to be a thought leader in my space. And I would admittedly acknowledge there is not enough diversity, and not in the most usual of suspects in terms of diversity. And I want to be in that conversation because I bring a lot to this party.
Yeah, I think that's a great podcast goal to have. Yeah.
Yeah. So we've been doing it once a month. And matter of fact, in light of what I told you about the Scotch whiskey tartan episode, that is another spoiler. That is going to be our biggest episode release party because I've been very fortunate. I live in a neighborhood called Carroll Gardens here in Brooklyn. And big shout out to Luana's and Enrique and Alana, who are very kind to me every month. And they let me use their back room for my events. Well, because I'm dealing with Beam Suntory, they have a very deep reach.
Okay.
And Mr. Brooking, we are going to have our episode release party at one of the bars that pours their whiskey. So this is going to be super duper. It's going to be later on this month, and yeah, like
Okay.
no one knows that I'm going to do something different like that yet.
All
So
right. Well, I'm loving the idea because yeah, we in Belgium it's also becoming a thing like having a podcast launch party, but
oh,
episode release parties. That's I like that idea. Yeah.
thank you,
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah.
go use it. You're in
Yeah, I
Belgium.
will. Thank
Um,
you.
yeah, I love it, and I'm building a community one person at a time.
Yeah, yeah.
But I want to keep on going. Like I said, it's only a few months in. I think I launched in November.
Yeah.
So very new, not even 6 months old.
Okay.
And yeah, so like I said, our big one is going to be in the Upper East Side of Manhattan at a whiskey bar,
Yeah. Cool.
which is owned by a Scotsman, I believe. So I'm really interested also, candidly, in the commingling of my audience that I'm slowly building and an audience they already have. So putting them together, having some cross-pollination, I'm very hopeful for that, to see the
Okay.
results.
So, yeah, you've been kind of roped into the podcasting thing by your friend, yeah.
Yes.
But yeah, the big question of this show is, why do you podcast? So yeah, you started maybe because you felt you had to, but why did you keep doing it? Why do you keep doing it?
I believe I keep doing it because I don't think really any different than anyone else. I have something to say.
Yeah.
So the barrier to entry for this platform is extremely low. Though, as you could probably hear, I have a pretty good tech here. So I built it
I can
open.
see also, yeah. But my listeners, of course, cannot see that. But yeah,
Thank you. Yeah, I've built it. I've built it over time, as everyone. Rome wasn't built in a day. But I have something to say. And like I mentioned before about the aforementioned space, there's not a lot of diversity in men's fashion. It's a white male dominated game.
Mhm.
And I say this often at the parties. The diversity is not just based on the color of the skin. It's also based on orientation, thought. So I like what I'm doing. I just need more people to know, aka the reason why I'm part of Podcast Marketing Academy, though I am the black sheep.
Yeah.
So the United States representative. So, but I still feel strongly enough to hold on to my pod and to build it and to grow it. And here it's expanding in a different direction. If you had asked me 4 or 5 years ago when I launched the pod with my buddy that I was going to be on YouTube, I would have told him, hell no. What are you talking about? So I'm here. I believe I'm here to stay.
Yeah.
And yeah, I mean, around the corner, I'll be at 100 episodes, and I really have to pay attention to that. I'm hoping that I have an intern this summer. Matter of fact, just saying this with you now is jogging my mind. I have to do this. If I'm fortunate enough to get a team of interns this summer, one of them hopefully will be focused on podcasting. And if they become really adroit, I'm probably going to have them. The way I envision my 100th episode is thus, and no different than anyone else. Snippets, sound bites from all the previous episodes, the hot takes. And already, as I'm saying that, I don't have to tell you, and I'm actually feeling the burden already. That's a lot of work.
Uh-huh. Yeah, it
A
is,
lot of work.
and that's I mean, I do them for my clients,
Ah.
but not for my own podcast because I don't have the time.
Right.
That's what I mean saying I'm the worst student in the podcast marketing academy, because I know all this stuff, but I just don't do it for my own podcast because I'm busy working on podcasts for my clients. But
Right.
yeah,
Well, I
and of
just
course I
like that.
cannot complain because I love my job. But yeah,
Right.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Well, I just like that we're both arguing about who's the worst. I'm the worst. No, I'm the worst. No, you're the no, I'm the worst.
Well, I have a reputation as a podcast manager to keep up, so maybe I'll give the title to you.
Yeah, I'm just a guy with a dream. I don't.
Yeah.
I'm not a podcast manager. Never gone.
So, um, are there things that this show has given you that you've learned from it, either for your personally for you or for your business? What has it given you?
I think it's just given me what I've already had within me is a platform.
Yeah.
I've always been that person. I always have something to say. I mean, I'm a native New Yorker for crying out loud, but I'm very opinionated. And actually, Jeremy, big shout out to him. And I don't know if you saw it in the circle community, but recently I had changed my description of the show. I knew it was time to, and I had some ideas, and other people had ideas. Unsurprisingly, Jeremy knocked it out the park, and I was like, guess I have to give it to him begrudgingly. But so, yeah, I like that that I am a different voice. I really, really, really enjoy that. I just want the voice to hit more people. Again, the issue of marketing. But yeah, I mean that's what I like. If if there was a podcast in which literally and figuratively my voice was already there doing what I already was thinking, then I wouldn't have done it. But I'm not saying I'm the second coming, not by any stretch of the imagination, but literally my voice and I think my approach in the space, yeah, I'm definitely, the dark horse candidate, but I think that will change. I think that will change over time. I know I'm just as good as the three pods I mentioned earlier. So it's just about people finding out about me. So by hook or by crook, they will.
Okay. Um, what um, what was your biggest blunder or blooper doing
Oh yeah.
podcast?
Oh, I mean, I think it's the same for everybody.
Really?
So
And what is that?
the tech. So absolutely. So I remember Pedro Mendez, the person I mentioned before. I was about to do an interview with him. We were just getting to know each other. Now we're very, very good friends. I can safely say, I believe. And with Zencaster, sometimes it's choosing, the default for the mic and the camera. Like sometimes you've got to put it in check, so to speak. So if you're not accustomed to that, which I wasn't at the time, and heck, maybe I still am not, and just what? And particularly when they can still at least hear you in the cans, right? They're like, I can hear you. I'm like, so that's happened more than once. But I remember his, I think, being the biggest. Now, irony of all ironies, I feel terrible doing this. Actually, I probably won't mention him by name. So I have a pending episode in which on the other side, the guy, he could not figure it out. And we worked on it for like 30 minutes.
What?
Yeah, I copy pasted in the chat because Zencaster has a pretty decent, you know, help section.
Uh-huh.
And he could hear me and see me. I could not say the same for him. In around 30 minutes, uh, I said to him, we have to wave the white flag here. Like, let's just schedule another date. And matter of fact, as we speak, I'm waiting to hear back. We've been talking occasionally. He's been traveling. He's based out of Sweden, and he recently was in Greece. So I was hoping this week, but maybe next week. And I'm the king of follow-up. So if I don't hear from him by the end of the week, I'll hit him on the WhatsApp and go like, hey, let's I don't want to lose. He's an author of a book, and he was kind enough to send me his book. I don't have this book memorized, and the more time goes by, I'm not going to remember this damn book. So I want
You
to
have to read it
want to
again.
knock
Yeah.
this out. So
Yeah. All right. Yeah. Yeah. But the same thing happens sometimes with Riverside. Of course, sometimes I have a guest on that has never used Riverside before, and then they don't have the latest version of the Mac OS installed or something, and then it doesn't work properly. And
oh no.
yeah, but it's never taken more than 30 minutes to get going. I mean,
Well, the one thing he realized after the fact is that on his side of it, he didn't hit refresh. I didn't think about that either, right? I'm just like, click this, click on this, check that. It's too easy.
yeah.
So now I have to try to keep that in mind if that ever happens with someone. But can you imagine it's like 30 minutes in, trying and trying, turning it on, turning it off. And every time he said, I could hear you and see you.
I think you're very patient.
I try. The older I
Yeah.
get, the more patient I become.
Okay.
So that's what time does.
Okay. We're already almost at the end. I have two more questions.
Sure.
The first is, what is the most important ingredient for a good podcast for you?
Sure. Curiosity.
curiosity. Nice, yeah.
Yeah, any person I put on, I have a genuine interest in their story, as I mentioned earlier. For me, podcasting is about stories. It can be many things, but for me, it's about the story. I find their story interesting and I want to hear about it at length. So, and it's an area that I don't know anything about. So, so the questions that I have are earnest ones, but yeah, I like, what do you do and how do you do it?
Cool. Yeah, that's this will probably be my episode 101.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, and I've had 100 different answers to this question, so it's just amazing. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
I think I'm gonna write a book about all the ingredients. But yeah, last question. Uh well, it's something I ask everyone that is a guest on this show, because I
Mm.
want to do a lot more episodes and a lot more interviews. So, is there someone you can think of that has a podcast and that I should invite?
Ooh.
And Jeremy already said everyone in the academy.
He was smart. He was smart. He covered. He was like, all right, I got an answer for you.
Say a specific name or someone that is not in the academy. Doesn't matter. Yeah.
Yeah, I believe I think I may be botching the title of the podcast, but persons of interest. I think she really does a wonderful job in her research when she talks about fashion. I can't remember her name, so forgive me.
Okay.
But and again, she's she's in the space with me, but I give credit where credit is due.
Okay.
And she's a former, if I recall, she's a ringer. She's what we call in America a ringer, because she was a producer of a pod before she became a creator and host of her pod.
Yeah.
So
She's like me then. Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. But it's a good pod. It's very well researched.
Okay. Cool. Yeah. I'm sure she will forgive you that you forgot her name. And
That's all right. She doesn't know mine, so it's all right. It's not like we're friends.
the show name, I will find her. Yeah.
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 Okay. Thank you very much, Reginald. It's been fun talking to you, and well, I wish you all the best with your show and with a lot of fun on the episode release party. And
Absolutely. Well, thank you very much, and I hope everyone takes one stab at the Fashion Geek podcast. It may be worth your time.
yeah, who knows? Because yeah, as I said, I always say to my clients, do as I say and not as I do, because yeah, I give them advice on their podcast marketing, but I'm not necessarily a very good example, so I cannot promise you a huge load of listeners on this podcast. But yeah,
okay.
if one could be enough if you get an extra fan. Yeah.
Absolutely. One at a time.
Yeah, one at a time. That's I like that idea. Yeah. Cool. Thank you very much, and have a nice day.
Thank you. You as well.
Thank you.
Bye.
Zo, die zit er weer op. Dankjewel voor het luisteren. Ik ben heel blij dat jij erbij was. En als je geen enkele nieuwe aflevering wil missen, volg dan deze podcast. En als je mij en mijn gast een heel groot plezier wil doen, dan maak je ons heel blij met het geven van 5 sterretjes in Spotify of een leuke review op Apple Podcasts of waar dat je ook luistert. En we vinden het ook altijd heel leuk om van jou te horen, dus stuur ons gerust een berichtje. Alle contactgegevens en linkjes staan in de show notes. Tot de volgende!